How bad do you want it? How much do you want it? How hard are you willing to work and put in the work? And how long are you willing to put in the duration of work to achieve the outcome that you desire? This is a very simple question when you really think about it. And what I've come to the conclusion is that people like us that are on the self-improvement journey, that are on the spiritual journey, that are on an awakened path, what most don't understand about people like us is that our not being available all the time, our ability to say no, our ability to be able to walk away from situations that do not suit our best interests, because we are the focal point and the mental origin of our own existence, and which, if you are not, I highly recommend you put yourself as the mental origin of your existence. Now, that does not mean the world revolves around you. That does not mean that you need to put the weight of the world on your shoulders. That does not mean that you have to really disassociate yourself from society. It just means that you put yourself and your best interest first. And that's going to be a very attractive trait to almost anyone you meet. Especially, like, no matter whether it's in the workplace, whether it's with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, whether it's with your husband or wife or whoever it is, your friends, family, whether you're, and the people that don't want you to put yourself first, they weren't really there for you anyway. And I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but somebody's got to tell you. Like, somebody's got to tell you that they don't really care the way that you thought they did. But people like us, we're not really good for the tyrannic globalization and economy-based, consumption-based society. Well, like, we're not good for that because we don't care about that kind of stuff as much as the average person does. And I'm not saying you're better or they're worse than anybody else. That's not what this channel is about. What this channel is about is empowering people to prosper in the most highest spiritual channel that they can possibly attain. So now the question is, how bad do you want it? How much do you not want to do the things that you don't need to do in order to get the things that you want but are really hard to get? This is a age-old problem. And I've always noticed that whenever I come into a situation where I'm leveling up in my life, there's always a lot of hardship right beforehand. And I don't hear from God at all. Like, God is silent to me during this time usually. And that's when I know that, all right, I'm going to take this exam of life. I'm going to take this examination of how much I know about what I'm really doing, and if I'm actually following what I'm saying I'm actually following, and if I'm able to really practice what I preach. Because a lot of times people don't know how to practice what they preach. Specifically, in my experience, in the places where they preach the most. So, it's funny because I'm absolutely not against I'm absolutely not against religion as a tool, as a mechanism for spiritual understanding and inner self discovery, but it's mostly a facade that a lot of people just play out because they think that that's the right thing to do. And this is another reason why we're not good for society and the plans that society has. No, what we're good for is God's will. That's what we're good for. And believe me, do you want the truth on behind you and in front of you? Or do you want to cower behind falsehoods and run away from the truth? Those are the two options. Those are the two options that we can do in this time that we live in. So, no, not always being available is a very good thing sometimes. It means that there's other ways to do what you need to do, and you know what you have to do. You already know what your priorities are. This is what happens when you mature. And a lot of people that preach maturity do not know how to live in that maturation. This is something that I've noticed. This is something that I've seen. This is something that I'm not particularly fond of pointing out or critiquing. However, somebody has to say it, right? Somebody has to say and call a spade a spade. And because I prefer to live in reality and I follow the Most High and what His will has for me, well, I'm going to do what God's asking me to do. And that's not always a fun thing. It's not always a fun activity. It's not always it's not sugar and spice and all things nice. Sometimes it really just sucks. It just really sucks. Because of the fleshly aspect of having to sacrifice my fleshly desires. This is one of the reasons why I think fasting can be so helpful to people. Fasting is a very probable, or I should say practical way to discipline your flesh, as well as semen retention, as well as just maintaining your eyes from any kind of seductive spirits out in the world, and making sure you are staying true to your path on who you are and what you plan to do, and making goals and actually making steps toward those goals. These are all ways that you can discipline your flesh. Because the more you discipline your flesh, the greater the enhancement of your spirit. The more you discipline your flesh, the greater wisdom and insight you attain. So how do you attain that wisdom and insight? You have to dig down deep into who you are, into your soul. What exactly does that mean? What does that mean, really? I'm asking that question to myself and to the audience here. Sincerely, what do you think that means? What does it mean to really look into your soul? That is, if you know that you have such a soul. Because some people are soulless. They are so fearful that they are soulless. So, what do you think? How do you handle this? For me, most often it happens while I'm working out now, usually when I'm running. And it's been pretty cold here where I'm from lately, so whenever I do go for a run in the evenings or in the mornings, it's always pretty cold because I'm doing a lot of work during the day. So I always go to the gym first thing in the morning at 5 a.m. That's always what I do, no matter what. That is, unless I'm like sick or something lately. So, uh, but since about November, December, that's exactly what I've been doing. So for about 3, 4 months now, that's been my routine, and I don't waver from that. I haven't not worked out since last May. And for any of the new subscribers that are watching this and that are making it all the way through right here, well, first of all, welcome. I'm glad you're here, and I hope this information is as useful as it can be for you. But there's also more so in regards to just who we want to become on this journey. Who do you want to be? So since last May, I haven't stopped, like I haven't gone a day really without doing some kind of physical activity. Now, for those of you that don't know, I was almost 200 pounds at one point, and I'm 5'6.5" or so. So, I was a pretty big boy, and considering my height, and now I'm about 158 between 162, somewhere in between there. I've been doing a little bit more bulking in my workout routines over the past month or so. So I'm going to start doing a little bit more of a cutting diet now. And like I mentioned in another video, I've been changing my diet recently. So transitioning into the cutting phase and just wanting to get more leaner. But what I've noticed is that my spiritual and my emotional intelligence almost always far outweighed my physical intelligence. Like, I've always been a very sporty person. I love sports. I love being active. But even when I was really active, I was always kind of, well, maybe not always, maybe like in high school I wasn't, but throughout my college years and throughout my, like, the last 2 or 3 years, it wasn't until about a year and a half ago where I really started to make a difference in my life on what I wanted and to lose the weight and how that all occurred. So I wanted it bad. I wanted it really bad. I wanted to feel like I was healthy again. I wanted to feel like I was alive again. I wanted to feel like I was a man again. Because I had that spark of manhood when I was like 18, 19. I remember feeling like, okay, this is a transition into something really great. And I kind of fucked it up for a few years there. I wasted a lot of time. But all of that wasted time, in retrospect, really wasn't exactly wasted time. It was learning curves for me. Like, I learned from everything from my past. I learned from absolutely everything that I can from my past. Because if I don't, there's not going to be a way for me to move forward. Now, I'm not saying you have to keep looking back to move forward. Absolutely not. But you get to a point to where on your spiritual journey you realize that it's just you looking back at who you are. And that is what determines whether or not you regret or not. Don't regret it. Make the change. And make sure you want to make the change bad enough. How much do you want it? Peace be with you. Till next time.